Welcome everyone. My name is Janas. I'm associated professor at the University of Gdańsk, and I will talk about marine protected areas. I will start with the value of marine ecosystem, threats to marine ecosystem. I will talk about marine protection, especially marine protected areas on global, regional, national scale. And I will finish with conclusions. When we think about value of marine ecosystem, we usually mean direct value for humans. Just to list some of the most important ones. Marine organisms are a valuable food for humans. They are source of active substances used in cosmetology and medicine. For example, phytoplankton produce oxygen we breathe. Could you imagine that maybe even more than 50% of the oxygen we breathe is produced by phytoplankton? Marine organisms also regulate nutrient cycles and climate. But marine ecosystems are important for nature in general. Biological valuation is based on biological criteria. It doesn't assume humans use value. Biological valuation is based on values that are important for ecosystem integrity and health. I list some criteria for biological valuation. It could be aggregation of species and individuals, so biodiversity, naturalness, rarity, or presence of habitat building species, or other species that perform important functions. For example, bioturbation of the sediments or filtration. Taking into account those criteria for seabed, the most valuable areas in the Polish marine areas are the inner, very shallow part of the Puck Bay. You can see it here, and the Stony Słupsk bank, situated on the open coast. The lowest value was assigned to the deeper hypoxic area, devoid of macrofauna. It's mainly because of eutrophication. Habitat building species have very high biological value because their presence makes the occurrence of other species possible. Habitat building species provide high species and habitat diversity, breeding and nursery ground for invertebrates and fish, habitat for species that are food for fish and birds, including the protected species. And there are some examples of habitat building species like seagrass, Zostera marina, algae, Fucus vesiculosus, or blue mussels. It is worth to add some information about zoobentos. Zoobentos is a group of animals living in or on the sediment. It could be also attached to the hard bottom or artificial structures. It is important food for fish and birds, play important role in organic matter transformation or nutrient cycles. For example, through feeding or mixing sediments. Predatory fish affect ecosystem through trophic control, which leads to a decrease in amount of small fish, such as stickleback, which in turn leads to an increase of crustaceans that fish feed on. These crustaceans are important consumers of filamentous algae. This type of trophic control can have a large decreasing effect on the amount of filamentous algae. Now, opposite situation. As consequence of low number of predatory fish, high biomass of filamentous algae is observed, which has a negative effect on seagrass meadows, but also on recreation or on fishery. When we know about high value of oceans and seas, we should think what we want from the sea. Do we want healthy food and clean water for recreation? If the answer is yes, we should protect our seas and ocean more efficiently. Because marine ecosystems are under heavy anthropogenic stresses. The most important are overfishing, eutrophication, pollutants, temperature rise, For example, eutrophication is a serious problem for the Baltic Sea and many other coastal areas of the world. High amount of nutrients in the water column increase primary production, which means phytoplankton blooms, including cyanobacteria algae, filamentous algae, which can float in the water column. This decrease water transparency and reduce distribution of benthic habitats such as eelgrass meadows. We observe also increased sedimentation and degradation of organic matter, which caused oxygen depletion and hydrogen sulfide release from sediment to the water column. This situation has negative effect on animals. Hypoxia, which means a low amount of oxygen, or anoxia, which means no oxygen, effect on behavior and physiology of marine organisms. In hypoxia, animals move upward or lay on the sediment or even die. There is no zoobentos in long-term hypoxic or anoxic areas. Now we can think, what is the oxygen situation in the Baltic Sea? It's not very good. In 2018-2019, the largest bottom areas affected by anoxia were recorded since 60s. It was 21% of the bottom. In 2020, anoxic conditions affected 18% of the bottom areas and hypoxic 30%. You can see it in the figure. Small improvement in the situation in 2020 can be connected with an inflow which occurred during 2019. Could you imagine that around 30% of the Baltic seabed is devoid of macrofauna, which means that there is no food for fish, so it could affect fish fitness. This bad situation in the deepest part of the Baltic Sea also negatively affecting reproduction of cod. The Baltic cod grow up to even 1.5 meters. But today, most of cod in the Baltic Sea are around 30 centimeters in length. Individuals measuring 40-50 centimeters are very rare. Cod is a predator, feeding on fish like sprat, herring, but also especially smaller individuals feed on zoobentos like crustaceans or polychaetes. Cod needs special water for reproduction with parameters very restrict, like salinity higher than 11, oxygen level at least 2 milliliters per liter, which means not hypoxic or anoxic conditions. In the past, cod spawning areas was the Gotland Deep and the Gdańsk Deep. Now, because of hypoxia and anoxia, cod spawn mainly in the Bornholm Deep. Now some information about sound and noise. Sound is used by marine animals like vertebrates, but also invertebrates to explore environment or to interact within and among species. Unfortunately, ocean soundscapes are rapidly changing because of massive declines of animals which produce sound like whales and increase in the anthropogenic noise. This sound is produced by many activities, human activities, like transport, building constructions, dredging, fishing, or military. In the top feature, you can see herring ranges of marine taxa from invertebrates like jellyfish, bivalves, and also vertebrates, for example, whale. And in the bottom figure, frequency ranges of selected anthropogenic sound sources like boats, dredging, offshore wind farms activities, but also you can see aircraft noise in the water. As you can see, there is an overlapping in ranges, which means that sound of human activities are heard by and may affect marine organisms. Noise negatively affect marine animals. What happened? They induce, for example, behavioral and physiological changes or compromises hearing ability. And the last one, we should think and decide what we want in future. Poorly managed ecosystem, marine ecosystem with a lot of activities, or well or better managed healthy ecosystems. Anthropogenic noise is a stressor for marine animals. Thus, it should be included in assessments of cumulative pressures on marine ecosystems. Actions should be taken to mitigate marine noise. Maybe we should protect or recover not only biological features of habitat, but also we should think about soundscape of healthy habitats. All those changes cause negative impacts on biodiversity and ecosystem functioning, which subsequently leads to economic and social consequences. To mitigate the negative effect of human activities, national and global policy has developed goals and targets to protect oceans and sea. I have listed legislative framework for marine protection areas. Convention on Biological Diversity was very important. It established a target of 10% of the ocean to be protected by 2020. Marine Strategy Framework Directive, with the main aim to achieve good environmental status of the European Union marine waters, and directive establishing a framework for maritime spatial planning, where nature and species conservation sites are listed as one of the activities and uses which should be included when establishing and implementing maritime spatial planning. Marine protected areas are one of the principal tools advocated to preserve and maintain biodiversity and ecosystem services and mitigate negative effect of anthropogenic activities. As I mentioned, the aim is to protect at least 10% of the ocean. To date, 7.7% of the global ocean is protected. And in fact, they are not truly protected, or some of them are not truly protected. To date, only 2.7% of the global ocean is fully or strongly protected, which means all fishing, mining, oil and gas, or any other extractive activity or dumping are prohibited. 10% target is a first milestone for global ocean protection, not an endpoint. 30% of the ocean should be protected to achieve the desired benefits for conservation of biodiversity. Size of marine protected areas and connectedness among areas are also of high importance. They facilitate benthic species larval dispersal and settlement. Big enough areas and connected with others are important for resistance and resilience of species and habitats to anthropogenic pressures. What does it mean? Resistance. This means that ability for ecosystem to remain unchanged. You can see it here in the figure. And resilience, the capacity to recover quickly when being subjected to disturbances. But what does it mean? To give an example with hypoxia, which affects benthic communities, the questions are: if they recover after stressful situation, when and how? And what will be the new state of benthic communities? All this depends, among others, on biodiversity of zoobenthos at the rim. In general, the higher biodiversity, the higher resistance and resilience. In studies in Europe, it was found that there are only few MPAs where an area of sea is completely protected from extractive activities. It means no-take zone. In studies done on 102 MPAs, benthic disturbance was banned from the whole MPA in only 6% of the MPA's case studies. It was in Barents Sea and Mediterranean Sea. Lime Bay case is a good example of successful increase in the protected area size. The evidence from Lime Bay is one of very few examples of integrated ecological and socio-economic study of a conservation measure. In the beginning, protection focused on small biogenic reefs was insufficient, only due to a broad-scaled habitat management measures. The removal of fishing pressure from both reefs as well as surrounding mixed sediment was possible. Only then ecological recovery and socio-economic benefits were documented. In the Baltic Sea region, HELCOM MPAs were designated. The main goal is to protect valuable marine and coastal habitats in the Baltic Sea through spatial and temporal regulation of human activities, implementation of conservation measures, and rising public awareness. The network should protect areas with important, threatened, or declining species or habitats, high natural biodiversity, rare, unique geological or geomorphological structure and processes, high sensitivity, and ecological significance. I will tell you a little bit about ecological significance. Ecological significance means a high proportion of habitats of migratory species, which need several habitats to move. Important feeding, breeding, wintering, or resting sites. Also, it means important nursery, juvenile, or spawning areas, especially for invertebrates and fish, and high natural biological productivity. In the beginning, 62 sites were designated in the area of the Baltic Sea. It was in 1994. Today, the number of designated sites is 177. The increase in coverage of MPAs from around 4% in 2004 to 13.5% in 2019 has been observed. Before I will show you the Polish HELCOM MPAs, I would like to introduce wildlife conservation in Poland. There are several forms of area protection in Poland. National park constitute the strongest level of nature protection. National parks, landscape parks, Natura 2000 areas have their representative in the Baltic Sea, as well as protected species. It's worth to add that first marine national park in Poland was created in 1996 when 1 mile of sea coastal area was added to the Wołyński National Park. And second one was created in 2004 when 2 miles of the sea area was added to Słowiński National Park. There are 9 Baltic Sea protected areas in Poland since 2010. Now they are called HELCOM Marine Protected Areas. Some of them covers area of national parks. It's Wołyński National Park and Słowiński National Park. Some cover areas of landscape parks, like Nadmorski Landscape Park and Vistula Spit Landscape Park. They are mainly situated in territorial water. They cover 24% of total Polish marine water. Among 9 designated marine protected areas, only 2 are partly managed. It's Ostoja Słowińska, which is a part of Słowiński National Park, and Wolin and Tuznam. The projects of protection plans for 2 more, Słupsk Bank and Nadmorski Landscape Park have been almost finished. All mentioned areas are also Natura 2000 sites. Natura 2000 is a network of protected areas covering Europe's most valuable and threatened species and habitats. The sites are designated under the Birds and Habitats Directives. Natura 2000 consists of two types of areas: special protection areas aimed for particularly threatened bird species, and for all migratory birds. It's marked in orange color in figure. Special areas of conservation aimed for the conservation of the more than 200 habitat types and species listed in the annexes. It's blue color in figure. In green, you can see sites belonging to both directives. Besides these central areas, ecological corridors play an important role in this network. They could be called blue corridors in the seas. A blue corridor is a route of particular importance in the sea for the population exchange between locations. It's especially important for fish, migratory fish like eel or salmon, birds, mammals, but also for invertebrates. In the marine environment, corridors may be very concrete, physical features such as coastline, sandbanks, or underwater meadows, but could be also defined by optimal water, for example, temperature, salinity, or oxygen condition. And in case of passive dispersal, for example, it's important for invertebrates, it could be defined by currents. There are threats to blue corridors, like habitat fragmentation or obstacles to migration, like constructions or just changes in environment, for example, oxygen depletion or currents. Nearly all Polish coastal waters are protected by the Bird Directive. In the figure marked in gray, the Habitat Directive in the sea covers Pomeranian Bay, Gulf of Gdańsk, and Vistula Lagoon. Słupsk Bank is protected by both directives. It's worth to mention that industrial activities are not banned from Natura 2000 area, but prior to such activities, environmental impact assessment has to be prepared. 9 marine habitat types are of special importance for European Union. Here I have mentioned some examples important for the Polish coasts. Sandbanks, which are slightly covered by sea, water all the time, estuaries, coastal lagoons, which is priority habitat, which means habitat type in danger of disappearance, or large shallow inlands and bays and reefs. Estuaries are one of habitat important for the Habitat Directive. Generally, this habitat refers to an area of river mouth and includes lower part of the rivers under influence of the sea. There are some examples in Poland. The Odra River and Vistula River outflows are the most complex examples. Estuaries comprise more than 70% of the area Ostoja in the mouth of Vistula River. It is very important habitat for migrating fish, including at least 4 species from Habitat Directive. Mewia Łacha, which is very close to this estuary, is habitat for the grey seal and harbor seal. There are, of course, threats for this area like eutrophication, pollutants, fishing, and noise. As I said, the Vistula River estuary is important for birds, especially during the spring and fall migration, it became resting and feeding place for thousands of birds, like seagulls, terns, and ducks. This is a place with high abundance of zoobentos, which makes the area perfect for feeding during migrations. Coastal lagoon is another important habitat according to the Habitat Directive. Shallow coastal brackish water basin of varying salinity, which is closed or separated from the sea. And sometimes distinguishing among coastal lagoons and estuaries or large shallow inlets and bays is sometimes difficult. There are some examples of coastal lagoons in the Polish coastal area, like Vistula Lagoon and Szczecin Lagoon, but also many coastal lakes are, according to the definition, coastal lagoons. The threats are eutrophication, pollutions, fishing. Vistula Lagoon is one of the examples where plants like phytoplankton or microphytes are dominated by freshwater species. Reedbeds are well developed in the coastal area. Zoobentos is not very interesting. It's dominated by oligochaetes, chiromids, or bivalve. There are many non-indigenous species in this area. Freshwater fish species occur as well as migratory fish. It's also an important place for migratory birds. There are also threats for this area because it's very shallow, very closed. The threats are eutrophication, pollutants, fishing, and new investment, Vistula Spit Canal. There are 16 species for which marine protected areas should be designed according to the Habitat Directive. I have listed only species important for the Baltic Sea. 4 mammals live in the Baltic Sea, 1 harbor porpoise, and 3 seals. But also fish and lampreys, rare migrating fish and lampreys are also among them. Harbor porpoise is one of the smallest marine mammals. The length is up to 2 meters. It can live quite long, around 13 years, but usually it's not more than 8 years. Females sexually mature at around 3-4 years. They are predators, feeding on fish like herring, sprat, but also occasionally on crustaceans like crustaceans and bivalves. It should be underlined that the Baltic Sea population is in danger and it's categorized as critically endangered in HELCOM Red List. Population size was estimated during Sambach project, and number of individuals is around 400, which is very low. You can see the distribution of the harbor porpoise in the Baltic Sea. In the Fiji, you can see the distribution of the Baltic Sea population with high abundance near the Ålands in Sweden. Harbor porpoise is also observed in the Polish coastal area. For example, 46 times were detected in the outer part of the Puck Bay. It was done using acoustic detectors in 1 year. There are many threats for this species: bycatch in gillnet fisheries, underwater noise, pollution, and ecosystem changes. And as I said, it's a species in danger in the Baltic Sea. Gray seal, it's a big seal with a length more than 2 meters. It's opportunistic predator feeding on fish like perch, sander, cod, or lampreys. The number of gray seals counted in the whole Baltic region was around 30,000 individuals in 2016. The species permanently occur also in the Polish part of the Baltic Sea. And since 2007, gray seal is permanently observed in Mewiałacha Nature Reserve, which I showed you before. It's at the mouth of the Vistula River. And the number of seals, maximum number, it's around 40 seals per day, but there are usually in a group of 50 or 100, and 400 was really maximum for a long period. Abundance in Poland is around 1% of the estimated in the whole Baltic Sea. There are, of course, threats for the species: tourism, underwater noise, pollution, and other ecosystem changes. I will tell you a little bit more about three areas: Słupsk Bank, Puck Bay, and Orłowo coastal area. Słupsk Bank is a unique geological formation of stones and boulders on stony bottom. It's situated in the open part of the Polish coast. The depth is less than 20 meters. Now I would like to present you a short video from Słupsk Bank, created by Grzegorz Adamski in October 2018 at depth around from 10 to 18. You will see stones and boulders covered by blue mussels or algae, brown and red. There are two habitats according to the Habitats Directive: sandbanks, which are slightly covered by seawater all the time, and reefs. And reefs cover around 14% of the total area of Słupsk Bank. In the shallowest part, stones are covered by brown and red algae. You could see them on the video. The Słupsk Bank is one of the richest habitat in the Polish marine area. As I said, biodiversity is very high, including protected or rare species like Furcellaria lumbricalis, the red algae. invertebrates, which are important food for fish and birds, fish like cod or European flounder or gobies. Some of them are protected. I should also underline that scientific studies are very scarce in this area, so data are limited. Słupsk Bank is also a very important area for birds, especially during winter season. Long-tailed duck you can see in the photo. There are many activities and plans for the development around Słupsk Bank, like transport routes, military area, and future offshore wind farms. I will tell you a bit more about offshore wind farms. They don't exist in the Polish coastal area yet, but in the last figure, you can see plans for the Polish offshore wind farms development. Most of them are on early development stage. Baltic 2 and Baltic 3 area are the most advanced, and around 50 turbines are planned at each of this area. There is general tendency in the world to increase size of turbines from 50 meters to more than 200 meters. The following scales are important in studies on the effect of offshore wind farms. Time scale with parts or phases like construction phase, operational phase, and we should also think about the commissioning phase. What will we do with all these offshore wind farms after 20, 30 years? There is also a spatial scale. It's from one turbine, a group of turbine, as I said, it's usually 50, 100 turbine per small area, but they are in a bigger groups. And we also think about the big scale, like a Polish scale or the Baltic Sea scale. All those aspects should be taken in life cycle assessment of the offshore wind farms. We can think what environmental changes can be expected. Currently, around 90% of turbines used in the offshore wind farms are monopile. Noise is the highest during construction phase, especially drilling. It has negative effect on whales, fish, and there are some studies also on invertebrates. So the noise also affects, for example, crustaceans. We observe in the world changes in sediment and organic matter content may cause near the turbines. It's rather local effect, but it causes hypoxia near turbines. In consequence, biodiversity or functioning of zoobentos could change. There are positive and negative consequences. Positive is that new artificial substrata will be inhabited by zoobentos, providing food for fish. Negative, it will be a new place for non-indigenous species. As I said, there are many threats for the area that result from human activities and pressures. Eutrophication, fishery, transport, pollutants, climate change are only one of them. Sand and gravel extraction is forbidden now in the Słupsk Bank area and hopefully will be forbidden in future. In near future, we will add offshore wind farms and non-indigenous species. So we shouldn't think about individual threats, but about cumulative impacts. Puck Lagoon is also a very valuable region. It's a large, shallow inlands and bays according to the Habitats Directive. The Puck Lagoon average depth is 3 meters. And in the outer parts, we have area limited to 20 meters isobath. So this is the area which is called large shallow inlets and bays. It is unique in terms of natural values, mainly because of seagrass meadows and high diversity of water plants, including protected and rare species, benthic species, which inhabit meadows, but also sandy sediment. We can find gastropods, bivalves, and crustaceans. Fish are represented by freshwater, roach and perch, migratory species, and seawater species. Two species of pipefish with elongated body, you can see it here, they belonging to the same family as seahorses. Let me tell you more about Zostera meadows. It is not only area of high biodiversity of plants and animals and breeding and nursery area, but also it produces oxygen and affect turnover of carbon and nutrients in the coastal area, so mitigate global changes. It also stabilizes the seafloor sediment and prevent coastal erosion. Very large meadows were present in the Puck Lagoon in 50s. It was more than 50% of the seafloor. From 50s to beginning of 2000s, the seagrass meadows were gradually decreased and it reached 3 or 4 square kilometers. The decline was mainly caused by eutrophication and as consequence, massive growth of filamentous algae that reduced the light penetration and oxygen level in the bottom zone. Another reason for the degradation of the habitat includes intensive dredging of the bottom for red algae collection for the production of agar. This degradation also makes that the bay was unpleasant for tourism, swimming, and other recreational activities. During the last 10 years, a natural recovery of the seagrass meadows has been observed. A threefold increase in the area to almost 12 square kilometers were estimated. It has been connected with reducing nutrient loading and improving water quality, so better water transparency. Hopefully, this trend will continue and we can think how to support this recovery with positive ecological and economical results like fish recovery. The seagrass meadows in the Puck Bay are hidden. They occur at depths around 2 to 5 meters, while reeds grow near the seashore. We can observe them. Reeds are a characteristic feature of the coastal habitats. Like in case of seagrass meadows, the reeds create shelter and feed ground for fish and birds, spawning ground for fish. Reeds work as a filter between land and sea. They stabilize the coast. The biggest threats for Puck Bay are eutrophication, fishery, transport, pollutants, climate change, non-indigenous species, and tourism. Eutrophication problems may decrease, but for this we need nutrient input reduction and proper functioning of the coastal area with meadows, other plants and animals. Tourism and transport will increase in future. And again, adding new stressors, we should always remember about cumulative impacts. The third area I would like to share with you, it's situated in Gdynia Orłowo. It's a reef according to the Habitats Directive. It's the specific mosaic of habitats such as rocky bottom and sandy beds. Hard bottom is overgrown with brown and red algae like Furcellaria lumbricalis, which is a protected species in Poland. It is habitat for invertebrates and fish, including protected species like pipefish, 2 species, gobies, and as I mentioned, Furcellaria lumbricalis and Zostera marina. And now I would like to present you a very short video from Gdynia Orłowa, sandy bottom, overgrown by Zostera marina and algae. Video was created by Radek Brzana in March 2018. As you could see, all regions I have mentioned, Słupsk Nadmorski Landscape Park and Orłowo Coastal Area, are the most valuable areas in the Polish part of the Baltic Sea. They are worth to protect as our heritage. As I have mentioned before, projects of protection plans for two first mentioned areas are already very advanced. Next step should be to design the monitoring program, evaluated the effectiveness of management measures on the ecology of marine protected areas. This monitoring should include appropriate control sites, maybe also sites completely free from human activities, as reference areas for assessment of marine protection. This approach is very important, especially when marine ecosystems are under high stress, also on the global scale, like climate change or eutrophication. And now conclusions. The mentioned marine protected areas and other areas under protection are an important part of effective marine spatial planning. Well-planned and managed protection areas with various protection levels, depending on biological value of the area, are prerequisite for sustainable development of marine areas, with benefits for economy, ecology, and society. I would like to finish with a quote. An ambitious approach to marine planning should acknowledge that features of conservation importance are also the critical natural capital underpinning human well-being at the broadest level, and this can't be traded against short-term, localized benefits to specific sectors society. And how to do this? I believe that our decisions should be based on best scientific knowledge of marine ecosystems. We should build and keep strong links between a broad range of stakeholders, including authorities, organizations, businesses, education, and private individuals. This is why I'm here today. Thank you very much. If you have any question, please email me.